Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so it's safe to say that people are a little frustrated with free agency. They kind of want it to be deal after deal after deal, and oh, big money goes there and he's moving over there, and big money goes over here and he's moving over there, and oh, we didn't expect that trade. The market, just like I tell people, does not find itself capitulating to your attention span or your interest. That's not how the market works. When it comes to things like free agency opens, but some moves beget other moves. Sometimes a guy is waiting for another guy to make a move so he knows where he can go, and then somebody else is waiting on him, so that therefore that person's waiting on to move. And in a market like this one, where everybody's so cautious not to step over salary cap and aprons and all these different things, it's more than likely, especially with the free agent pool not being overly talented with big names. The biggest name is like Paul George, Klay Thompson, and James Harden. You're not going to see the big moves that you're expecting to see in the hour that they say free agency begins. Free agency means the market opens. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to be throwing their money at something when the market opens. Some people are going to walk in, see something they like, price it, maybe they pay for it, maybe they walk out. But the market opens. It doesn't mean that you can expect news. And I tell people this every year when it comes to free agency. It's not like the trade deadline, because that's a trade deadline. That means if things don't come in right now, it ain't going to be no later. So people are rushing to capitulate to that. It ain't like a draft, because obviously a draft is people going through the pool of picking up players that have entered their name into the draft, and you already know who the lineup of the draft, so you kind of just know in a sense that that's what it's going to be. Free agency opening up just means that the doors have opened to the target. Is everybody going to be purchasing everything at once? No. Throughout the course of the day, are you going to see things bought? Yes, and the equivalent to that is probably throughout the course of the next 2 weeks. So I just don't know why people get their hopes up thinking that this is going to be something that is going to yield a lot of news. You may see some news, but that's not what this is. And I don't understand why the media and a lot of talking heads get them their hopes up for this particular thing. I never do. I think this is the beginning of a process that's going to trickle down throughout the course of the next 2-3 weeks. And that's really all it is. So if we do see some moves made today, which we've seen a few, cool. But it's not like you're going to see all the big movement in a matter of like a buzzer sound, which is what I think a lot of people expect. It's just, it's a total misunderstanding of what this actually is. So with that being said, there were some things that happened. James Harden, 2 years, $70 million. I don't know how he's still pulling that kind of money from the Clippers. I know Ballmer got a lot of money, but it's not a lot of years. But you're overpaying for him. I'm just being honest. You're overpaying for what James Harden's bringing to the table at this point. He's not that anymore. So that makes you wonder what that set up in regards to other people and what they think they're supposed to receive. And then you see KCP, 3 years, $66 million. Well, that's a good contract to the Orlando Magic. He's leaving Denver. I'm happy about that as a Laker fan. I don't know that Denver's going to be able to recover who they in that situation. Obviously, they've lost Bruce Brown last year. Now they lose KCP this year. They're talking about showing interest in Russell Westbrook. Denver's headed the wrong direction. And if I'm Jokic, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what this franchise is doing. They prioritize drafting a front court forward / center. You got Jokic and Gordon eating up a good portion of your cap. You just paid $1 trillion to Jamal Murray, and then you trade away Reggie Jackson and only pack up point guards you got on your roster. This is a lot of weird stuff going on in Denver, and I'm afraid Denver Nugget fans are going to have to accept that this is not going right for you. You guys are starting to make decisions like the old Denver Nuggets, and that is concerning if you're a Denver Nugget fan. Andre Drummond, $10 million, 2-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, to go back to Philadelphia. He played there once before going to Chicago. I don't know what Chicago's doing. They should have taken deals on him. He played so well last year. They could have traded him. They could have really gotten something for him, but Chicago's in shambles, man. I think it's very important that the owner of the Chicago Bulls fire his front office. He really needs to do that. They're not doing right by your franchise, man. That's what it really comes down to. And if it's you strangleholding them to poor decisions, I just want to say these are decisions that should not be made. Letting him walk for nothing, trading Caruso for Josh Giddey when you could have had 2 picks for him. The Zach LaVine contract, the initial paying of Zach LaVine, all that money years ago was terrible. The idea that you want to go forward with DeMar DeRozan at this point, you're going to have to overpay to keep him. That's horrible. The contract that you just gave to Williams, I believe that's his name, the power forward that you drafted that hasn't developed properly, not good. It's just a lot there, Chicago. And to lose Drummond for nothing, the value of what it is that they have just keeps decreasing. They're making mistakes that the Lakers made years ago when we were letting things leave left and right and making bad trades left and right, and letting guys stay too long. Always say don't let guys retire in your uniform or hit free agency. You want to trade them at the deadline if you're about to lose them. These are the type of things Chicago just does not. They don't do any of the things they should do, it seems to me. The timeline don't make no sense. The Lonzo Ball contract, all of that, everything about Chicago is just bad right now. They are the patsy of the NBA as of right now. There's no franchise worse than them. Not even Phoenix, in my opinion, even though I hate what Phoenix does most of the time. I still think Phoenix did good in the draft, and they tend to find talent and work around the margins pretty well. I think James Jones has done a really good job based on what the owner's demands are. And what he needs to do to fill out the roster, I think he's done a good job. And this summer seems to be the same with the draft and how they handled that. So, to me, the worst team moving right now is definitely the Chicago Bulls. I would have said the Brooklyn Nets, but I think they've turned the corner in regards to starting the process of their rebuild. I expect for some type of move to be made there. Maybe they continue to try to shop some of their existing contracts, try to bottom out a little bit. They can't do nothing with the Ben Simmons contract. That's just an anchor they're going to have until it expires. But everything else they should be able to move on from that otherwise is on contract or else away from a timeline of rebuilding. So Cam Johnson should be on the move. Dorian Finney-Smith should be on the move. And if anybody would be willing to take that Blake Griffin contract, not Blake Griffin, but Ben Simmons contract, they should be willing to get that the hell out of there. In fact, if I were them, I would dangle that with a pick or 2. Maybe not 2, but 1. I'd say, hey, anybody willing to take the rest of this Ben Simmons contract, I'll give you one of the picks that I just received from the New York Knicks. Because that'll really create a lot of flexibility for them to get that thing the hell off their books somehow. So that's something to think about in regards to them. Keep an eye open for them. Of course, they re-signed Claxton earlier in the week, rather. Thought they did pretty good with that contract. 4 years, 100 for Claxton's not bad, I don't think. What else happened, man? I hear that B.I. Could be traded to Sacramento. They're trying to negotiate how to do that. All quiet on the Klay Thompson front. From what I understand, the Golden State Warriors want to work out a sign and trade. A couple of days ago, I was up for a sign and trade. In fact, my initial thought was that would be what the Lakers would want to kind of do in regards to getting Klay Thompson, maybe trading D'Lo for Klay Thompson. But now that I hear the Lakers could be potentially looking to move D'Lo in a separate deal, if I got to choose between the 2 deals, that's a little frustrating for me. I'm looking to bring, in my mind, Jeremy Grant and Klay Thompson to me. I'm not looking to give Golden State really any assets at all, to be honest with you. I prefer not to go the sign and trade route for Klay Thompson. He's an unrestricted free agent. They ain't did right by him. I'm not inclined to do anything for Golden State. I think they should lose him for nothing. I really do. And I hope that's what happens, honestly. I know they're going to try to explore sign and trades. I think it's more likely they get a sign and trade done with the Mavericks than with the Lakers. I really think that, or with the Clippers than with the Lakers. Because if I'm the Lakers, I got better plans for my assets. Just to be honest with you, I have no intention of sending D'Lo back to Golden State at all. Because I'm going to use him in the Grant trade with Portland. So I don't know what to tell people, man. I don't know about that Klay Thompson situation. As long as they're talking about sign and trade, I don't believe trading D'Lo for Klay Thompson is my best move when I have the Grant trade possible too. If I gotta choose one, I'm gonna choose probably Grant, to be honest with you. I probably am. I just think it's a more productive player at this point. So it's gonna get a little awkward. If Klay's not willing to just leave Golden State outright and he wants to help his team on the way out the door, I'm not inclined to do that. Not me personally. I'm not inclined to do that. Leave them. They ain't did right by you. Mike Dunleavy ain't that great of a GM. Leave him. Leave him right there by himself. They don't need no assets going back to Golden State for Klay Thompson. If they value Klay Thompson, they would re-sign Klay Thompson. That's how I look at them. So, from what I understand, something similar happened with the Clippers. Clippers rejected a sign and trade for Paul George, headed to the Golden State Warriors as well. Essentially, the Warriors wanted to give them Wiggins and CP3, and they said hell no, or something like that. I think that's how that went. Oh no, I get that confused, actually. Forgive me. That was nixed. But also there was a deal in place for Wiggins and CP3 to go to Chicago, and that was also nixed by the Bulls. I don't think they wanted to do a sign and trade either. I think that's how that went. For Zach LaVine, or maybe Golden State turn. I don't remember how that went, so forgive me. But point is, signing trades in regards to the Golden State Warriors have been not happening, even though they've been on the table. Zach LaVine for Wiggins and CP3. One of the two sides said no, and then from what I understand, the Clippers said no to a sign and trade for Paul George. I think that's a better way to describe what I know. Details of how that went, I don't know. But the point is, Golden State, in my mind, doesn't really have the leverage to do a sign and trade. I don't see anything that would make me want to do anything like that for you. If I'm the Lakers specifically, I don't care to do that. For what? Is what I would tell Klay Thompson's representation, and is what I would tell Mike Dunleavy Jr. For what? What's in it for me? When I can take Klay Thompson from you for nothing and take the assets I would give to you for Klay Thompson, send it somewhere else. I'm not going to spike me to please you when you don't have the leverage to do that. So someone would have to make that make sense to me. I don't know what Golden State could do to make me look at them and say, okay, instead of doing the Grant deal, let me do this sign and trade with you, even though this guy can just come here outright. I don't know what would make me do that. So that's telling you, Golden State's in trouble, man. The best thing for the owner to do is fire Mike Dunleavy as soon as it makes sense to do so. Get him the hell out of there, man. He hasn't made a good deal yet. You know, they waived Chris Paul. Subsequently, later on in this day, it was reported after the opening of the market that Chris Paul was waived. I would have rather had Jordan Poole over the last year and a half, man. At least you know Jordan Poole's a young player, won a championship with you. You should be able to move Jordan Poole at this point, if you're the Wizards, for something better than an expiring, exploded contract of a washed-up CP3. That was a bad trade for Golden State. I understand they need to move Jordan Poole, but that was an awful trade, and they got nothing out of it. You had CP3 for a year, nothing happened. Your team was trash. So, what are we doing? Is what I would ask Golden State Warriors. What are we actually doing? If I were a Golden State Warrior fan, I'd be calling for Mike Dunleavy to be fired right away. I really do. I just don't think he's any good at this job, man. I really don't. Everything I've seen has shown me that he's not the greatest evaluator of talent, and he's not the greatest capturer of leverage. It's just doing stuff with the assets that don't really make any sense. What was the point of the CP3 deal? Now that we've seen the completion of that process, was it not as bad as we thought it was when we saw that being done? CP3 on a $30+ million contract for multiple years? What was your plan? It had to have fallen through because they couldn't have been having you bring that much of your cap to you in the form of that player, pushing you into a position to where you got to sign people like Ty Jerome, only to waive him at the end of that process and not get anything for it. You never traded it. No one was ever going to take it from you, just like I said when you took it. No one was ever going to take it from the Wizards either, unless you came along and did that for them. And that's exactly what you did. The only thing that should have happened with that Chris Paul contract was that the Wizards should have been left to deal with that thing on their own. That should have been the only thing done there. They should have been left to stretch that thing. And you could have signed him to a vet minimum deal last year and had the same effect, only with more cap to use on other players that would have made your team actually pretty good. But because you wanted him on a $30 million contract, you had an awful season. It was why your season was terrible. And you fast forward to today, and the best thing you can do is waive him. That's what came of that. Mike Dunleavy got to go, man. Them dudes in Chicago got to go, and Mike Dunleavy got to go. Until you owners start shaving off these bad GMs, y'all going to have problems, man. Problems in a market where you can't afford to have those. So that's something I've been looking at, paying attention to. I don't know what Chicago's going to do next. Likely try to re-sign DeMar DeRozan to some inflated price, just like they did with that rookie that they didn't develop properly, Williams, if that's what his name is. I don't even remember what his name is. That's how sad this is. But it's just a lot of bad going on between those two places, man. This is bad. Both sides. They probably should do the Zach LaVine deal, or should have done the Zach LaVine deal if it were possible. At least Zach LaVine would have been a star-level player. You just let $30 million dissipate into nothing. Couldn't do nothing with that CP3 contract. Maybe you might have did better sending it to Brooklyn for Ben Simmons. At least you could have got something there. I don't think any of that looks any good, but that's what happens when you take on an asset you have no business taking on. That holds zero value in this league. I get frustrated with that type of thing. So, yeah, man, that's what I see there. What else? What else is going on? There was some other things as well. We saw Obi Toppin get a deal, 4 years. Don't quite remember the money on that, but just know he re-signed with the Pacers. I should have wrote all this down, but I did not. So, it is what it is. But free agency's been what I would expect. Not a whole lot going on, man. KCP is probably the biggest deal, and James Harden going back to the Clippers for some inflated price that doesn't make any damn sense. That's really what it is. And so I like the KCP deal for Orlando. I don't doubt they can use the offense, specifically him stretching the floor. Defensively, they got a lot of defense, so they're only going to be better defensively adding KCP to the fold. I think he kind of gets lost there over the next 3 years, though. He's really had an identity playing with the Lakers in a championship situation, playing with the Nuggets in a championship situation. Going to Orlando, you're going to disappear, bro. I'm just going to be honest. You don't move the needle for them like you would have moved it for Philadelphia is what I would tell KCP. In Philly, next to Joel, you're playing for something. And you go to Orlando, they better keep on making moves. They better do something else. That can't be the only thing they do if they're serious about moving up, because I'm not saying they're not better, but they're not better than New York, Indiana, Boston. Obviously, they're not in the top four of the East, so they got more moves to make, and I think they got more money to pay. So we'll keep an eye open for Paul George, see if he goes there too, or if there's some kind of way they can make a trade to kind of shake some things up for their franchise, kind of get them over the hump if that's what they're trying to do, which it looks like they are. So we'll see. But free agency, you guys, it ain't on days like this when the free agency market opens. Don't expect all the news to come in at once. Don't expect that ever again. It just doesn't work that way. The market's not dictated by our interests. It's not sitting there waiting to divvy out all types of wonderful contracts so that we have news in a matter of an hour. That's not what this day is about. And if you happen to have a day like that where all the news floods in, then great. But planning it so that you find yourself disappointed and your viewership disappointed. It's just a misunderstanding of what this actually is. And I've seen so many different publications, so to speak, make this mistake up and down YouTube. Yo, that's not what this is. But I think over the next course of the next maybe 24 hours, 48 hours, we'll probably have news trickle in. But that 3 o'clock deadline thing, or that 3 o'clock grand opening, so to speak, that's rarely is that going to be what you hype it up to be. Rarely. So this is what I wanted to say, man. I should have came more prepared, but I honestly didn't think a lot of the news that was there was really all that noteworthy, to be completely honest with you. So yeah, I just think that the CBA is very restrictive, and they really need to go back to the drawing board with that thing and take some of them damn aprons off so that some of these teams can cook. BDL 44, I thank you all for watching. Out.